You're working harder than you have in your entire life, but your business just won't grow. You're stuck and you have no idea what it is that's actually holding you back. Look, I've seen this scenario hundreds of times. Founders that are grinding, working 80, 90 hours a week, but their revenue is staying exactly the same. And so what happens in this stage is they think it's their product. Maybe the product isn't that good. They think it's their ads. Maybe the ads are fatiguing too quickly. They think it might be their website or their product display page. But the real issue is that these founders, they don't know the actual constraint of their business and they aren't doing the right thing in the right sequence. And I know this because I've been there myself. And for over a decade now, I've been helping new founders fix and unblock the particular constraint that they are struggling with in their business and go on to do 7 and 8 figures with their companies. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you the complete constraint unblocking roadmap to help you understand exactly where you're at and where you need to get to and what you need to do to unlock that next level of growth. So most founders stay stuck, not because they are bad at being an entrepreneur or not because they're bad at the work they do, but it's mainly because they allocate their time and attention and resources to the wrong things. And so what I want to show you through this video is how to use this constraint mapping matrix to determine where exactly you should be placing your attention on in which particular stage of your business, and then what good looks like and how you actually should elevate to the next level of problems to solve. So if you take a look at this matrix right here, what we've got on the left-hand side, you, because when you start at your business, you do everything. There's no one else. You're the advertiser, you're the product seller, you're the product designer, you're the CS person, you're the finance person. You have to do everything, right? And along the horizontal axes here, we have the traffic, right? Because initially, when you are starting out, you need to get traffic to your product page to actually generate conversions. Secondarily, once you have traffic coming through, you need to generate conversion. And then third, you need to fulfill on the conversion. And then lastly, you need to retain the conversion to make sure that all of the customers that you bring into your business, they don't just fall out the back and become a leaky bucket, right? And then up along this vertical axis, you have systems, which is like level 2. And then you have people above systems, which is like level 3. And I like to think of these in levels. So I like to think of this in like level 1, level 2, and then level 3. Now, what happens here is most founders, they go barreling out of their business and they start focusing on all the wrong things. Now, what that looks like is this. Generally speaking, traffic is ignored. Conversion gets focused on because it's easier to look at your web page or your product display page and then start making changes because you can see it, you can touch it, you can look at it, you can be like, wow, you added this new image and it looks very pretty. Fulfillment, as far as like getting your product, ordering it, having it in the warehouse, all that stuff is easy to do when you're starting because you can have the product in your warehouse, you can have it in your home, and you can see it all around you. Retention kind of gets ignored. And so what it looks like is this. As you progress, you need to solve each of these problems in order. Let's say I've got my product and I'm about to launch. You need to develop whatever the KPI looks like for traffic for your business. And this might be a particular cost per click. This might be a particular like CPM. You can't really control the CPM, but you want to have some benchmark indicators to tell you, is my traffic right? Is it an issue? Are we paying too much for traffic? You might look at your click-through rate here and start to determine we are under the KPI for traffic costs. And this needs to be the first thing you focus on, because the reason this is important is because if you are not getting enough traffic to your website, then it doesn't matter how high your landing page converts at. It doesn't matter how much focus you put on your fulfillment. You just aren't getting enough people to actually visit the site in the first place for them to convert whatsoever. So traffic needs to be the first thing for you to do. And so only when you do the traffic thing and complete the traffic thing and do it really well, should you even think about shifting your attention over to the next quadrant in this matrix, right? Don't move forward until that is completely ticked off. Like I said, focus on your creative, focus on your offer, focus on all different forms of creative. Now, as we look at the conversion step, this will have certain KPIs as well, and you'll attach these based on your business. This might be things like your add to cart rate, as an example. This might be things like your conversion rate, as an example. And these are determining factors of how good my web pages are actually converting, right? What is my average order value, as an example? This goes in here as well, because on the conversion component, we want to convert at the highest profit as possible, as many customers as possible, or as many site visitors as possible. And so what you want to do when you move through this matrix into step number 2 is you want to make sure you establish all of your benchmark KPIs first before you progress into the next level. I've got my traffic, it's working, it's ticked off, I've got consistency there. And I like to use the rule of 3s. What that looks like is 3 consecutive months of performance that is at or above KPI. If you can't do it for 3 months or more, chances are it was just luck. So tick the traffic off for 3 straight months, meaning I'm in KPI, my CPMs, my CPCs, my click-through rate, all of them are consistent for 3 straight months, and we are at or above where we need to be on the traffic component. Then I start to shift my focus over onto the conversion focus. Like I said, this begins to look at add to cart, conversion rate, average order value. The reason you want to focus on this next is because this component right here is what will drive the profitability of your business, and it will open up your ability to scale faster, right? The theory behind this constraint matrix mapping tool is it's designed to help you identify first and then solve each of the constraints in the order that they actually block you in your business. Let me explain. When you start out, you have no traffic. If you have no traffic, you can't get conversion, right? So there's no point in trying to do conversion if you have nobody to convert. Let's say, for example, you get traffic and you get conversion, but you have no product to fulfill, then you're not going to be able to fulfill product, and then you're going to have refunds and disputes. So you must solve fulfillment, right? If, for example, you do not solve retention and back-end sales, meaning like repeat customers, and get this to an acceptable KPI here, what will happen is all the work you do here on the front end will drop out the back of the bucket, and you'll have very low repeat customer rates. And then as you start to scale up into the next level here, your profit will impact your ability to scale, because this level of systems and people requires fatter margins and more consistency with your gross profit. And that comes from the retention component. So it's designed to help you to identify each of these things in the linear order that they actually happen. So let's say, for example, going back to this specific situation, we've identified the traffic, we've solved the traffic. Now on the conversion component, I've gone in here, I've optimized my landing page images. I've got extremely strong offers all over the product display page. I've got strong pricing. I've got discount timers. I've got clear messaging through the entire product display page. Once you have optimized this component and your conversion rate is consistent, you're getting 50 to 60% of people that add to cart going through and actually converting, things are moving in the right direction. Let's say we've ticked this component off. We want to then move over into the fulfillment section. Now, fulfillment is different for different stages of your business. Initially, this is going to be you in your bedroom or your garage fulfilling orders, all right? However, as your business scales more and more, we want to go from you to systems to people. And then initially, as it's you, fulfillment means a bunch of different things. So what it means initially is ordering your stock, right? The turnaround of that stock, because the longer you hold stock in your garage or your warehouse or wherever it is, the more cash you have in inventory and the less cash you have in circulation, making you more money. So the fulfillment component is one of the areas in this business matrix that you probably want to not spend tons of time on, but the goal here is to shorten the lead time, meaning when I place my order and I invest cash into stock, how long is it between the moment that I actually spend money on that inventory and then until the moment that I get that cash back via sales? The longer that period is, the less cash you're going to have available in your business at any given moment. And so the goal here with the fulfillment section is to have the tightest cash conversion cycle, meaning, and C is the way to think about it, meaning when do I spend money and when do I get that money back? Efficiency in relation to your fulfillment is going to be the main thing that's going to help you to scale faster. So fulfillment of the promises made, and the overarching principle here amongst each 3 of these components here is this: we want to make sure traffic and how the message in traffic says gets matched on the landing page with the conversion component, then we want to make sure that as we actually make promises on the landing page that match the messaging in marketing, we want to match that with fulfillment. This is called congruence, and it's tremendously powerful in relation to your marketing and the customers having this like say-do ratio, and they begin to love and trust your brand, which when it comes to retention as the final component, it locks it all together. Let me explain the negative. Let's say, for example, in your traffic, you make wild, strong promises about big claims and things that your product can do. When you get to the conversion component, that messaging is accelerated. It gets even stronger. Then what happens, you get to the fulfillment component and the product ships slowly. Customer service is poor. When they get the product, it's really poor quality. And then so the retention piece, renewal or the repeat customer piece goes through the floor. And so what happens is in a lot of companies, they get stuck at this stage here because the quality of the product that they have is actually really poor, and they're really good at over-promising in the marketing and then driving that all the way through the funnel. Once it comes to fulfillment, the back end drops, and then their repeat customer rate is between 3 and 6%, and they make no more money from their customers. And if you haven't, you might know it now, that the customers that buy from you the second, third, fourth time over and over and over again, they are the most profitable people. And if you cannot get your retention or your repeat customer rate up to say 20 to 40%, you are leaving money on the table, especially if you have a replenishable product. Moving right along to the retention or repeat customer rate. This wants to be one of the most powerful components of your business. Like I said, you want to get the retention up to 20 and 40% in that range. And you want to do this through text message campaigns, loyalty campaigns, email marketing campaigns, community building, anything that you can do to increase the stickiness of those customers. Because here's a quick fact. 80 percentile of people that purchase from an e-commerce business, right, never purchase from the same business again. And they will go out into the market and they'll go and find another company that does something similar, and they'll purchase from that company instead of your business, right? And so your job here with this retention component is to hit this metric here, because that increases the cash profitability of your business. People buy a product because they want a particular transformation. Now, your product's ideal situation is to take this state that they want to get to and then bring it as close as possible into their current right now. How can I do that? And the way you do that is by plotting the purchase journey and looking for all the different moments that happen from the moment they purchase right through until the product being shipped. And then they might try it on. Then they might, I'm not sure, go to a party on the weekend and someone else might see the product. And then you want to look at these moments and think, which of these moments closest puts them in a position of this transformation. And you might figure out that the moment that they actually tell their friends about the product, this is a strong activation point. Okay, on average, that's 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before that happens. We want to send text message and email at that moment to reactivate that behavior. We have now ticked off this component right here. I've done the traffic, I've done the conversion, I've done the fulfillment, I've got a cash conversion cycle that's nice and tight. Let's say, for example, it's average 14 days here in terms of cash conversion. And now let's say my retention and my back end is 30%, which is reasonably quite strong. At that point, this is now a scalable system, and I have beaten the level 1 boss. Good work. Congratulations. If you haven't done those things, go through each of them in order and make sure that they are ticked off and done. Once that's complete, we move up to level 2, which is the new boss, all right? I like to think of this as systems before people. Let me explain. So if you go straight from you doing it and then you immediately start drilling into additional people that you might start hiring, number one, it's very expensive. Number two, you haven't yet taken all your knowledge and put it into a transferable document or process that someone else can follow. And so by you focusing on systems as the second step, what it does is it forces the constraint around the information that you know, and you know it by doing it, forcing it out of your head and into documentation that can be transferred to somebody else, right? And so what that looks like is this. Let's say systems equals more, okay? We're looking to get more leverage, and that's the goal with the systems. Down here, you're bludgeoning things and you're just pushing things through with not too much refinement, optimization, polishing. When I think about level 2 here, we are starting to polish things and make it a little bit more refined and precise so that we can get a little bit of energy in and a lot of energy out. This is called leverage. If a system has 4 steps, right, versus 16 steps, the 4-step system will always win. And so your goal here is taking the process that you've kind of bludgeoned and brute forced your way through, then turn it into a series of the least amount of steps as possible so that you can get the result. And that's where you then in future are able to hand it over to someone else in a simplified, condensed version. So let's say, for example, you develop your content system, and that is going to be responsible for taking your content creation from 10 per week up to 50 per week. Congratulations, fantastic, well done. Then you move into step number 2, which is a conversion. And this conversion component is a data-backed conversion system that uses the exact customer messaging of people that, as I mentioned before, are your high value customers, meaning the people that pay you the most, right? And then when it comes to how much pressure they put on you, they do this, right? They hardly put any pressure on you, but then they pay you a lot of money. These are the people you want to optimize more for. And in this stage here, the system needs to be designed around data collection and then the optimization of the demographic, the messaging, the specific kind of content that needs to go towards those people. Let's say we've done that there and we've checked that box. We continue forward and we start to develop the system around your fulfillment. And this needs to be really dialed in at this stage here. And so this system that you develop here for your fulfillment is going to smooth out and balance out the volatility in your company so that the stability in the next stage when you add more people costs into the system can be more improved. Then we continue forward to retention. Retention now becomes a system. How do I put this into a systematic process of being able to take what we did before in terms of those high value clients, and who knows, when it's just you doing this in the initial first stages, you might be wild and crazy like some of my clients, and you might call every customer. You might email every customer down in this step, because what you want to do is you want to do the unscalable, the things that no one else is willing to do. If you want to get to this 30% repeat customer rate, you need to surprise and amaze and shock those customers with just how brilliant your company is. And you're not going to do that with like, hey, thanks for your order. Here's your 10% coupon code off the next order. If you really want to build a hyper profitable company, start off by putting yourself in situations where you are capturing real data and you are doing in particular timeframes where the customers are just so surprised and so delighted by your individual founder first service that they're like, I can't believe this. This is the most insane thing ever. And they tell all their friends about you and they tell all of their family about you because you personally messaged them. You personally sent them an email. You personally sent them a voice note saying, thank you for your order. We appreciate you so much. Here's something for your next special. Here's something for your family. Thank you for looking after small Australian businesses as an example. And then you take this system that you developed here, and then you might map this into a process that might turn into a series of emails. You might integrate some AI into this situation to take what you've got and then be able to actually improve it such that it can be systematically done consistently. Then we move into the final stage, which is people. Now, the reason that it's always in this order is because now that you have a process, you have a system that you developed, it's easier to be able to give that document, that transferable sequence, that SOP, that process of work, give it to somebody and say, I want you to follow these steps. As opposed to what happens with most founders, they get to this stage here, they can't even do it themselves. They go out here and then they start delegating people. These people have no idea what their business even does. They start running ads for them and then they start wasting money and the founder has no idea what they're doing. These guys have no idea what they're doing and money is just burnt all over the place. When you go through this step and you actually create the system, what you do is you build a foundation that is transferable, but you give somebody your company IP, the knowledge about why your company is the way it is, and that makes the people transfer so much easier for your time and attention. Let's say we've taken this information in this transfer document, we've handed it over to somebody to say, please, I need you to create the creatives for me, I need you to buy the media for me. This is how I've done it. This is the performance that I've got for the last 18 months of doing this. I need you to beat my prior best. That's the game. You need to challenge them to do that because their attention is solely on that. However, you also need to be aware that they will only likely do 80% of what you did because they are not you. They don't have that granular contextual detail of information about you and your company. And that's why this skill transfer is so important to get right. Because if you don't do this, that 80% that they have in terms of their skill set, geez, that might go down to 40%. And then you've got an average person performing an average output, right? And your business starts to suffer. Then we move forward onto step number 2. And this is where you might have copywriters, you might have email marketing people, and their sole mission is going to be to increase the conversion throughput, increase that add to cart rate, stack that so your business makes more and more and more profit per unit. Okay. Let's say, for example, that's done. And we move forward to step number 3, which is the fulfillment. At this point, you take your system, you take your ordering process, and then you hand that over to a 3PL, or you hand that over to an individual that you hire in-house. This is what we expect. This is what we do. And this is why. Can you match it? Can you meet this? Our business needs these metrics. If you can do it, we're going to lock in a contract and we're going to do some business together. And it makes your fulfillment process so much easier. Finally, the retention component. This might be something that you eventually, as the last step, go ahead and actually replace and delegate and move out. This matrix is your graduation pathway to go from you being the solo operator to you being a founder that is making $1 million+ per month in the company while also working on the business and not in the business, right? So what I recommend you do after going through this right now is you identify exactly where you are up to. Identify which stage you're up to, because a lot of the time what happens is it goes like this. I'm the founder. I'm going to do some traffic. I'm going to do some conversion. I'm going to do no retention. I hate fulfillment, so I'm not going to do that thing. Now let's go hire someone to do traffic for me. Now let's go and hire someone to do my fulfillment in 3PL. And so you get this patchwork quilt of attention being put all over this grid. And then because nothing's being done in a linear fashion left to right through each of these levels, everything starts to be done extremely ordinarily and your business does not grow, leading me to that first point of feeling like you are working really hard, but you're not making any progress. It's because you're working on the wrong things. When you are in this stage here, and I can almost itemize this by revenue levels, this stage here should be from like 0 to 100K a month. You can get to from this level here. This level here is the systemization stage. This is 100K per month to say 300K per month. And there may be introduction of people in this stage here. This stage up here is about 300K per month to 1 million per month and beyond. That's what happens at that point. It's a people-focused game, but people need to be built onto the right systems so they can actually have the opportunity to grow and use their skill set to go up and out as opposed to down and in. If you found that helpful by any means whatsoever, take the step that you are up to in your business and you can apply this to any particular business, a service-based business, a product-based business. It's very much the same in terms of these stages of left to right through the actual process of conversion in any particular sales cycle. Feel free to find a link in the description below and you can look at some more information about what my company does at Ecom Capital. We've been helping people with these exact processes and frameworks for almost a decade now. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you on the next one.